Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Julia Beauchamp and I'm here with Computer World senior reporter Lucas Mirian, as well as Computer World executive editor Ken Mingus. We are live on Computer World's LinkedIn page, as well as on YouTube on our channel, IDG Tech Talk. So if you are watching, please do, if you have any questions while we're discussing, let us know in either the comments, if you're watching on LinkedIn, or in the live chat if you're watching on YouTube, and we will do our best to answer them while we are live to certainly the best of our ability. So we have talked in the past about the Pegasus spyware, which is made by NSO Group, which is a technology firm. And Apple has now sued NSO Group, basically saying that the spyware was allegedly used for surveillance of very specific and targeted people. And they also want to, in this lawsuit, ban NSO Group from using any Apple products, software, etc. So to give a brief overview, I want to talk a little bit more about kind of what it means for digital rights, but I do think a brief overview is important. And so, Ken, would you mind telling us a little bit about what the Pegasus spyware is, how we kind of got here to everything up until the lawsuit, basically?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Julia. Pegasus, as you may remember, is the spyware that suddenly seemed to show up on a bunch of reporters' devices. It was either earlier this year or it might have even been last summer. I can't remember now. It's been known about for probably the better part of a year, I would say. And it was created by NSO Group, which swears that it's not designed to allow governments to spy on people. But that's sort of like, the open secret, because the assumption is that governments get hold of this. They try to implant it on devices of, maybe groups that they're watching in their country, reporters that they want to keep track of what they're doing. And once it's on the device, it really allows whoever's, implanting this thing to access everything, everything of import on a phone, messages, emails, pictures, I think location data. And so what Apple has done basically, and they were very blunt in the lawsuit that they filed, basically accusing NSO Group, which is an Israeli firm, of doing this intentionally. And so what Apple is trying to do here, I should just note, Lucas wrote about this in the last week or so, and Apple's claims are pretty specific. Violations of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, violations of the California Business and Professions Code, breach of contract because they affected iCloud terms of service, and unjust enrichment. Okay, now that's all kind of dry language. But basically what Apple did with the lawsuit is accuse NSO Group of running a surveillance ring or allowing these countries, dictatorial, authoritarian countries, to use this software to spy. And, one of the things that's becoming very clear is that NSO Group doesn't really want to talk about, who's using its software and how it might be used and what NSO knows about that. And so what's going to happen here if this suit goes forward, and this is the second time that NSO Group has been sued. They were sued by, was it Snapchat, Lucas?
I think it was WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. Thank you. Yeah. But discovery here is going to be really important because it basically allows Apple and the public to kind of peek behind the curtain and see what NSO Group is really up to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
go ahead, Lucas.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. The NSO Group was already facing, as you mentioned, legal action from the messenger platform WhatsApp. They filed it 2 years ago, and in a victory for WhatsApp because the NSO Group had tried to hide behind or find protection behind international law, saying one country, a court in one sovereign country can't sue for actions in another sovereign country. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rejected that. So WhatsApp lawsuit continues on, the one that was filed in 2019, along with now Apple's lawsuit that was just recently filed. And a lot of this came to light because of watchdog organizations, specifically Citizen Lab, that has been looking into this and investigating what exactly has been going on. So unlike like spyware that we're used to seeing that infects randomly millions of computers, this is very specific spyware. Right. And governments say, well, we're using this to track criminal activity. So it's very specific to certain entities. It's not broadly deployed. But what in this case, what Apple is saying is that this spyware is being forced onto customers' devices. And this one exploit in particular called, appropriately so, forced entry, that has been used to install the latest version of NSO Group's Pegasus spyware on the various devices. And that's the same thing that WhatsApp is saying.
Right. And it is important to note here that, I mean, first of all, I do believe, and I think we talked about this previously, Ken, that Apple did patch the flaw, and also in Apple's statement, they also said that they will be notifying anyone who this affected. So it's not, it's not something like you said, Lucas, that's like super far reaching. But if you're curious, there is a way to figure out if you were affected rather. So now that we have a nice kind of overview of this topic, I want to talk a little bit more about what it sort of means from like a digital rights and a privacy perspective. Lucas's article I linked already in the YouTube description, in the YouTube live chat, and I'll link it in the description after the fact as well. But I thought there were some really interesting points and sources in this article, Lucas. And I was wondering what digital rights activists and experts are sort of saying about this lawsuit specifically.
Right. So a tertiary effect could be, I spoke with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a citizens' rights group. They do investigations of their own into this and also fight legal battles on the same front. And they're a little concerned that this case could set precedent to not just use these laws against bad actors, but to use this precedent against good actors. So
right.
The same people who are using software and investigatory techniques to discover what bad actors are doing, this law could shut them down as well. It could basically go against Citizens Lab, for example, the actual entity that discovered this in the first place and brought it to light. So they don't want, they're hoping that it doesn't have that kind of a broad reach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I would imagine that that's important. I think it seems like the consensus that they alluded to is that, Apple is a private company. And while it's, good, they view it as good to file this lawsuit because it is standing up for privacy, digital rights, et cetera. It's, they're a private company. It's something that's affecting their bottom line. And it's really wanting to make sure that this law and any sort of interpretation of the law or precedent set by it is not affecting good faith actors.
Right. I mean, they have to deal with this, and talking about Apple now, the financial bottom line here is they've got to deal with this. So they've got to spend time developing software to thwart these malicious programs that are being placed on users' phones. It also doesn't look good that users are understanding that they're being tracked.
Of course.
And this software can track you on all different modes of communications, whether it's your actual video camera or your text messages or voice. It pretty much can track anything that you're doing on your mobile device. And it's strange because like the Electronic Frontier Foundation is usually not a real cheerleader of Apple. They've been very critical of them for their own device surveillance efforts. And of course, Apple is saying that some of these efforts, like they were surveilling phones for child sexual abuse material on users' devices. Mm-hmm. But that, again, has a broader reach. And what kind of data is it gathering from all these devices? If they're searching all the phones for this, what else are they gathering? So EFF Electronic Frontier Foundation has been highly critical of Apple for this. And in fact, I think they rented a plane and flew a banner over Apple's Cupertino headquarters recently. So,
yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that becomes very clear with this lawsuit, the earlier lawsuit, and just the larger issues is that, in many ways, the law is not yet prepared to deal with issues that are not country-based, nation-based. So yes, Apple could file a lawsuit here in the U.S. How much damage it can do to NSO Group in Israel remains to be seen, unless Apple can get data or information from NSO, again, as part of discovery, where they can really show the world this is what they're doing. You know, Apple in the lawsuit literally called NSO Group notorious hackers. You know, and so if they're trying to, you know, portray themselves as just innocently putting this software out, basically they say we just build the software, we don't really know, you know, who's using it and how they're using it. And I think it was the EFF person who said, basically politely, that's BS. You know, that I think she said, if you're selling it to Saudi Arabia, you can probably assume it's being used in ways that are not healthy. And in fact, wasn't this sort of tied to the Jamal Khashoggi thing? Or there was some suspicion?
Well, they've been accused of, in fact, the Saudi government using this very spyware in order to track friends and associates of Jamal Khashoggi before he was killed and after he was killed, murdered in the embassy. Let's stop saying he was killed. He was murdered. Yeah. So yeah, they were accusing that. Now, of course, NSO Group has said absolutely not, and they're saying our clients don't use this for malicious reasons. And they, in fact, do state, you know, just to full disclosure, they have sections of their contracts that they revealed because of this case that require customers to use its products only for criminal and national security investigations. But, you know, it's not a stretch to believe that some very authoritative governments wouldn't use this for other purposes. And that's really what people are accusing them of. They're saying, you know, where's your due diligence in ensuring that you're selling this software to the appropriate entities and not governments that would use this to oppress dissidents and political rivals and journalists?
Sure. And I would, circling back a little bit to, you know, Apple specifically suing NSO Group, even though they are not the first, like you mentioned, Lucas, right. I think that, I would imagine that this is also something that, besides affecting the bottom line, I'm sure Apple is sort of looking at this and saying, I mean, they've positioned themselves as the more secure smartphone offerer. So I'm sure that's especially is something that they're concerned about, because it affects, you know, not only their bottom line, but I mean, also in conjunction with their bottom line, you know, their reputation.
Yeah, I mean, if customers get wind of the fact that their products are being abused by this spyware on a regular basis, it's creepy. I mean, it makes me think, is Android more secure? Although actually some Android devices can also be targeted by the Pegasus software. So it's not as if any of the devices are really secure. But yeah, I mean, this is a concern. I think Apple is trying to nip it in the bud, and they don't want this to continue down the road. International law, this isn't the first time one country has sued a company outside of its borders. So I don't think it's a stretch to say this would be more difficult, but I'm talking to experts. They don't believe that you're going to have to now sue. Apple's going to have to sue in each and every country that they have an office individually. So there is international precedent. There is precedence for international law governing this.
I wonder, you know, and I wonder if this is Apple being savvy by saying that if it finds Pegasus, it's going to notify the customers, because, you know, the people whose devices have this installed, because I would think that would then open up those customers to being plaintiffs, or not plaintiffs, but plaintiffs. Yeah, plaintiffs. Basically, they could file lawsuits as well individually.
Yeah, it could turn into a class action.
Right.
You know? Easily, I could see that happening. I think somebody would have to lead them down that path, but
I bet there's some lawyers out there that would be more than happy to lead these folks down the path. Yeah, but you know, it gets to the point that, you know, Apple has tried to portray itself as being, again, certainly secure, but also on the side of privacy, and it has been very vocal about, you know, not letting even in the U.S., law enforcement agencies crack iPhones and not making it easier. It's not going to install a backdoor so that those phones can be cracked. And so, you know, anytime that whole we're going to protect your privacy image is dented, and this certainly was a bit of a dent, even though Apple, you know, it's very, very sophisticated software. You know, it took a while for Apple to figure out how to sort of close whatever door you know, Pegasus had used to get onto devices. But you know, Apple doesn't want to. It doesn't want its name in the headlines saying, "Oh, these iPhones have been cracked by this really super sleuthy surveillance software. And I mean, we talked about it, Juliet, before with Michael.
Yeah.
This is something that's obviously targeted at a limited number of people. You wouldn't want to put it on everybody's phones because you'd have so much information you wouldn't know what to do with. But if you're trying to target a journalist or an opposition leader in a country, something like that, then it could be very dangerous for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I just circling back really quickly, just to sort of, tie this all neatly in a bow. Obviously, this was just filed and there's probably not going to be any sort of resolution quickly. Just my guess. I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that this would set a pretty big precedent. I mean, no matter how the suit goes, for privacy and for digital rights, which I'm sure would be interesting to follow as it unwinds.
Yeah, and it could have blowback on Apple as well, who, as you know, have been monitoring devices. Other companies do as well for what they say are good purposes.
Right.
But yeah, precedent is always tricky, and I'm sure the courts are going to take their time on this one, make sure they get it right.
One thing I should point out just on a factual basis: Apple is not alleging that Pegasus basically breached Apple's systems.
Right. That's a good
clear,
point.
They're one of the counts that they have filed involves, iCloud, but it's not like Pegasus got into Apple's iCloud system and could read everybody's, everything that's stored there. It is very specific to the device. I just want to make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
Apple's, I don't know that we even know how many devices might have been infected, but it's not like it's the whole company in any way.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also another part of this lawsuit is Apple itself saying that they want to ban NSO Group from using, I'm just reading directly from Apple's statement here, is any Apple software, services, or devices. So also cutting them off entirely. And I think just corollary to this is that I want to say that the NSO Group was also put on the U.S. entity list. So it's also, I think, more difficult now for NSO Group to really do business with any U.S. company, which is something that I talked about at length a while ago with Huawei, but we won't visit that now. It's a whole other topic.
Other episode, Julia.
Yeah. So it does really seem like there's still certainly a lot to come, but it was really great to hear about what it sort of means for digital rights and for privacy. I think that's really the crux of the issue as it affects users, certainly, and with users, obviously, enterprises. So I think that was a really good point to make. So I really appreciate you both coming and chatting about it. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. We'll definitely be following up on it, Juliet.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll keep an eye on this case. We'll be back at this, I'm sure, again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And speaking of, I will absolutely link, like I said already, Lucas's article about this in the description. And it's a little bit more, it has a lot more information about specifically what it means for digital rights and about the lawsuit itself. So if you want to read more about that, you absolutely can. I'll also link a few applicable videos. We had one a while ago about the spyware itself, and then also Apple scanning for CSAM, I think is the
There's
acronym
also
they
a
use.
Johnny Evans blog too, Juliet. He
Okay.
also wrote about it for us. So we can drop
I'll
that
link
link
everything.
in there too. Yeah, perfect. Great.
I'll link
Thank you.
everything. So if you're watching and you're interested, check out the description. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. And if you're watching on LinkedIn, you could head over to our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk, and you can like the video over there, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode, and hit the bell icon so you're notified every single time we post a new video. If you have any questions or comments that we didn't get to or answer, or especially on a topic like this, just like angles, especially as it pertains to privacy, digital rights, data, etc., let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and your perspective. Thanks again for watching.